This month, we'll be celebrating and honoring Father's Day. And today, we wanted to honor our hero, my husband, back by demand. So welcome back to the open book for our Q&A.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we'll be answering questions from you, our viewers. And I have not seen some of those questions, so my magician producer will be handing them to me. Yes! So let's get started.
All right.
Okay, our first question is for Ed.
Wow.
For you.
Straight into the fire.
All right, this question is from Joshua. What do you do to let your work stay at work and have it not affect your regular living and relationship with those around you?
Good question, Joshua. Well, what I try to do is not bring work home. I try to keep both of my life separate, work life and my home life. I try not to think about work. I try to spend my time with my family and not think about work, which sometimes it is hard to do, especially if I have a hard day, depending of incidents or things that I've seen. But I do sometimes bring home from work because I tell my wife about things that I've seen, and it's very difficult, but you have to make an effort to keep them separated. I have a couple of friends that I hang out that are cops. But other than that, all my other friends and associates are not cops. They're my neighbors, other friends, family. And so with that, we don't talk about cop stuff. So it really does help not really associating with cops.
Good answer. We have another question. This is from Joshua. Also, how does your faith, religion, help you with understanding people you interact with daily?
Well, I grew up hardcore Catholic, and being Catholic taught me to be humble. I treat everyone the same. I treat everyone equal. I come in contact with people who are homeless or people who have a lot of money. And I treat them the same because you don't know what they've been through. And one day we might find ourselves in that situation because we don't know what life holds in the future for us. So I treat everyone the same, how I want to be treated.
Oh, okay. Do you sometimes offer prayer is that something that you guys are allowed to do? Or do you sometimes, if somebody said, hey, can you pray for me, or, something like that?
Well, that all depends on the person you're with, because sometimes some people are religious, and we do, there are cops that have, let's do a prayer. But it all depends, because some people are not like that. Some people might get offended.
Okay.
And we have to stay not religious or religious. We have to stay within the guidelines of our.
So there's not an
job.
actual rule that says that you guys cannot pray. Okay.
But I do pray every time before I go to work.
Yeah, you're
I do
right.
pray.
Yeah. Okay. This question is for us. Ooh. How do you all discuss finances? How do you save? An anonymous viewer. How do you save and how do you discuss finances? I'll let you go first.
Well, I think that a lot of couples, that's a major stressful topic, and a lot of times people get divorced or get in a lot of arguments over financials. But for us, I think that we have separate accounts, which a lot of times people think that's weird.
I know you guys think it's weird. I've made it known that we have separate accounts.
But a lot of times it does help because she works and I work, and we have our own bills, and I pay the bills, she pays her bills. And then a lot of times, any big ticket item that we want to purchase, we discuss it with each other and make sure that it's okay. Because a lot of times, if we're planning for a vacation, we want to save money, we have to talk and tighten our budget, or say this is our budget and we can't make those big purchases.
To piggyback off of that, we are very frugal. I know a lot of people that, make as much as we do and live very outrageous lives. And for us, coming from the background that we both have, I think what has played a big part in our finances is that we came from families that didn't live also out of their means. Back in the day, my dad made a lot of money back then, and we still lived very humbly. Of course, he would spend money on items. My mom would tell us that he would spend money on items. But for us in my home, that has played a big part in how we together spend our money. And I think I respect that Eddie works very hard for our money. And why would I want to disrespect him and just take a bunch of money and go buy a purse? Like, that's not how our relationship works. And we really don't have disagreements about money. We have conversations about money, and we never ever talk about that in front of the kids. If we're having a conversation, we don't talk about it in front of the kids, because that's none of their business. And that's what has worked for you and I all these years.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we live within our means.
Mm-hmm.
We don't try to keep up with the Joneses.
No.
Or the Garcias. Whatever you want to call them, but we live within our means.
Yeah.
We have friends that maybe buy this or do this and go places, but we know what we have. We know we need to save, or we know we need to have money for a rainy day. So I think we worked well together as a team.
Yeah, and we've also, I think, instilled that in our children, that you don't need to have the best of everything, materialistic wise. We've always instilled that in them, and we've seen it now that they're adults.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a good question, viewer. Next, this is for you, Ed. Ooh, this gets a little intense. This question, it's a very important question, I feel. Okay. How did you blend yourself with someone who already had children? And how did Bridget's children adapt to having a male in their house? And that is from viewer AN.
Wow, that's a very good question. Well, first of all, I never pictured myself with someone with children. But at the end, I fell in love with Bridget, and she had 2 kids. And first and foremost, I spoke with her, and we had a plan where I injected myself little by little into their life, into their kids' life. And I think it also depends on the situation, where if their father was in a picture or not in a picture, because that's a big factor.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times if you meet someone with children, the children might think that you are trying to take their father's place.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to know your place. It's a very delicate issue, and talking and observing the life they have, whether or not their father's in the picture, is maybe a good indication of how fast or how slow you inject yourself into that type of environment, a familiar or family environment. So for me, I think it wasn't too difficult, because Bridget and I had a good communication. Their father was in the picture, and we were amicable, because it's not for him, it wasn't for me, it wasn't for Bridget, it was for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they see that we were, I say not best friends, but if we were courteous to each other
On good terms
and everything, then it made that transition a lot easier.
So if the father's not in the child's life, then what?
Well, if the father is not in a child's life, it's very difficult, because you have to talk, engage what the child is thinking of the children, because they might want to have the child, or the child might want to have their father in the picture, and they might reject you. So you have to kind of observe how the child is,
Yeah.
and not try to force it, but let it, inject yourself little by little.
It's a very fragile situation at any time, and I've had many numerous friends who've been in situations like this, and I think some of the mistakes were forcing their children to accept the new person in their life, like forcing them, oh, that's going to be your new dad, that's going to be your new mom. And I've also had some acquaintances who've chosen their other half before their children, and I've made that very clear to Eddie first, that in any situation where my kid says something and he says something and it's not, it's a problem, I will have a conversation with both of them at the same time. I'm not going to be like, oh, let me pick my child's side. And I also made sure that I made my children know also that he will be respected. You're not going to disrespect him. And that's another thing too. So, the situation is so sticky and so fragile, and we didn't lose sight of how the kids were feeling at all times too. We always made sure we kept that ball rolling, where we were asking the kids, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? There's trauma in the background to all of that, right, as well. The kids' trauma, the mother's trauma, and I think he came in as a champ, in the situation. It was, my kids were not babies. They were a little older. So I think we did well. And till this day, just the other day, I think Austin just told him that Eddie is his hero. So I think that's a good sign.
Almost made me cry, but...
Okay, this question is for Bridget. For me, how long were you a single mom before Eddie came into the picture? And how was the transition with having a male in my home? This is from Adrian. I was a single mom for about 3.5 to 4 years. And it wasn't a big transition because there has always been a male in their life. There was always a male. I grew up in a male-dominated home. So for me personally, it wasn't a big transition. For them as well, it was not too crazy for them because, like I said, they grew up in a house full of males. I didn't let Eddie meet my children, and I say the word "let" is because you, as the mother, you hold the keys. He did not meet my children for a while. I did not want to throw them in a situation like that. I have to at all times put my feelings on the side to respect my kids. Why would I introduce them to somebody that I myself I'm still trying to figure that part out. So that plays a big role in introducing your child to just anybody. I think it's very, very important as a mom to protect them, but also to protect yourself from having to come back and explain, like, oh, it didn't work out. So that's just not my boyfriend right now. I mean, like, why would you do that to your kids? So think about that. Let's move on to the next.
Good answer.
Let's see. Oh, this is for us.
Wow.
It's from Jenny. How do you discipline your children? And when they reach adulthood, do you kick them out? Do you give them the boot?
Well, I think that's a conversation you need to have at a early age or early stage of your relationship when you have kids. I think that Bridget and I have been on the same page when it comes to discipline.
Oh yeah.
We need to start early because there's at some point where it's going to be too late to start discipline because the child is already molded to a certain expectation of discipline or not discipline. So I think that for me, my opinion, I think you should start early. As soon as they start walking and getting into little things here and there, don't abuse them. You might spank their hand or their butt.
Do you believe in spanking? A lot of people ask if we believe in spanking.
I do to a certain age. I think when they're little and you tell them no and they keep doing it, a little smack on the hand, a little smack on the butt, or being stern is helpful. But I think that there is a fine line between abuse and discipline, and I think you should never cross that line. Keep it, simple. but there's a certain age where if you've done your job correctly, I think there's an age where only your stern voice should be enough discipline.
Exactly.
As they get older, maybe taking away things, privileges.
Taking away the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
That's
things.
been a big thing that we threaten them with.
Yeah.
We'll turn off that Wi-Fi real fast. Oh, and that works.
So about kicking the kids out of the house.
We don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do that, but we do have rules. Once they turn 18, things change because technically they're adults.
So we have an actual contract that Eddie has drawn up that we sit down together. And I know it sounds crazy. It's a contract. It's kind of like a rental agreement that they have to fill out where it states their rules, regulations, what they have to take care of, what their fines will be if they do not take care of those. What was chores now is kind of like their living headquarters, kind of like they have to follow these rules or they will get fined. That in any, like even adults, we park in a certain place, you'll get fined. So that's how we run that part in the contract. We call it rental agreement contract. What did we tell them about school and working and rent?
Well, with that, we came to a conclusion where if you go to school, college, or even a trade school or whatever, but if you're doing something, you live in the house for free. The only thing you may have to do is buy your own toiletries. If you want something special for yourself, like if you want to buy a certain type of ice cream, hey, you buy it for yourself and it's yours.
And you write your name on it, because living in a house with 3 other kids, they'll eat your ice cream.
Yeah, but if they work and they're not going to school or anything like that, then they have to pay rent. And people might say, well, why you make your child pay rent? But I think that we are training them for the real world, because in the real world, you're going to have to pay rent. There's going to be rules everywhere you go. There's going to be, if you have roommates, you're going to have to get along with roommates, and there's going to be rules. So for us, it's just training our kids to be adults, self-sufficient adults.
Self-sufficient. And if they're late on their rent, and each of them have a different, we don't stick to like $300, $200. It goes accordingly to their job, of course. And everybody works. If at the age of 16, if you want to get a job, we've allowed them to get a job. But once we see that they start lacking in school, they need to quit their job. Now, when they're 18, everybody has to get a job in my house, some type of job, because if you want XYZ, we're not gonna fund that, your habits. If you want to go out and eat with your friends, we're not going to give you money to eat with your friends. If you have a cell phone bill, which is also something that we're very strict on, a lot of people tease us because our kids never had cell phones till the age of 18. And that played a big part in how we manage our house, because once you give them a phone under the age of 18, that's already that's toxic, because they're watching these things. You're putting them in situations where they can be texting all night, they can be on social media. So once they're 18, they're allowed to get a phone. They need to pay for their own phone bill. Same with their car insurance. They can be under our car insurance, but they need to follow the rules. We had an incident when one of the kids did not want to follow the rules and stick in the perimeters that they should be driving in because they just got a car. So guess what? Bye-bye insurance, go get your own. And
it was double.
It was double and
more than double.
Yeah, and so that child had to learn the hard way. We are strict, and we feel like being strict has helped our children to realize what is allowed in the real world and what's not. And they have came back to us and told us, the adult children that have moved out, like, wow, if we didn't do XYZ, we wouldn't be able to adapt as quickly as we did to the real life. So good question, viewer. Oh, this is a marriage question.
Wow. I'm an expert at marriage.
Oh, okay. How has being from 2 different cultures affected being married to each other? If this is from Michelle.
Is it for you or me?
Both of us. How has being from 2 different cultures affected being married to each other? Eddie is Hispanic, He is
Mexican.
Mexican.
You forgot.
Mexican. He and I am from Hawaii, and I'm a mixed plate. So let me see. How do you want to answer that? Because this is not the first time somebody's actually asked us that.
Well, I think that, like for me and my culture and the Asian culture, yeah, there's differences, but I think that at the end we all want the same thing. We all want a comfortable life. We all work hard for our children. We want to raise good children. We work hard, so that's the easy part. Well, that easy part. But I think other situations like removing your shoes.
Oh yeah, that was
That was something where I had to learn, like removing my shoes to in a house. Just little things here and there.
Food wise.
But food wise, I mean, I love Asian food, so it wasn't too big of a deal with me. But maybe like my family, some of the traditions or some of the things that we do may seem weird to my family, and
like
vice versa.
The house and like what we do in our household.
Yes.
Okay, like the shoes and stuff.
The shoes and things like that. The food.
Yeah. He's adapted to my culture pretty, and I think maybe it's also because he lived in Japan, probably, or because he traveled a lot of places. I think he's adapted to my culture. Maybe not the culture of Hawaiian food. I think he really doesn't like Hawaiian food.
I like Hawaiian food,
I don't think he likes pork in general and rice. I think rice for him, food in general, it has been a hard thing to tackle with us. And I think also the fact that prior to us getting married, we also discussed what I am not willing to budge on. Certain practices. I know in Hispanic culture, women serve the husband. I think in a lot of cultures, the women serve the husbands their meals. For me personally, I don't mind doing it once in a while. I don't mind serving him once in a while, but I don't make that my priority. Because I grew up in a male-dominated house, I refuse to wait hand and foot on any male, and he's laughing because we used to discuss this a lot, and he would be like, "Go get my food, lady." He would just joke around like that, and he knows that would irritate me. So he's adapted to that kind of stuff. If we don't have that type of relationship. We just don't have that relationship where he's like demanding me to do something, and I don't demand him to go work a 9 to 5 and then work overtime because you're the household. I take out the trash, he washes dishes. It's very, very open to moving around.
Can't believe you said that I wash dishes in public. But
I take out the trash.
But I think that you have to give a little and take a little on the end, because we have to merge our cultures. We have to teach our kids both of our cultures, and I think in the long run, it's going to benefit them. And like I mentioned before, I think is at the end we all want the same thing. We're more in common. We have more things in common than not in common. So, I mean, maybe just the food and little things like that. But I think overall it wasn't too bad.
It's not bad. Okay, this question's kind of crazy. I'm gonna have you answer this because I feel a certain way about it, which would probably take a whole podcast episode. So I'm gonna just let you have this one. It says us, but this is from MW. How do you maintain a healthy, loving household if one of your children and their other halves do not get along with your children? Mic drop. I'll let you handle that one.
I think people come with different customs and maybe ideas, personalities, view life, how the way they view life. So it's about to happen. And my thing is that I try not to get involved too much. I give some advice, but in the long run, I try not to get involved because we don't know if eventually that one of the kids is going to get married to that person, and now we're going to have to live with them. And we're going to have build some type of relationship with them. And even though if the kids or siblings don't get along, I just tell them, hey, you know what? You don't know what's could happen in the future. They could get married, have kids, and they're gonna build a life with them. And if you want to be part of your sibling's life, then you're gonna have to be able to
Adapt
be
to
courteous and adapt to the other person, at least so you could have some type of relationship with your sibling or even your niece or nephew.
Yeah. And of course, boundaries have to play a big part in this,
Yeah, I mean,
in our experience.
yeah,
Boundaries.
I mean, there's always going to be boundaries, and you have to read the person to find out how far you could push it, how far you could get along with that person. Because some people you could joke around and they'll roll right with it, and other people they get hurt because they think that
Yeah.
it's not a joke. But I mean, we joke around a lot, so
Yeah, our house is pretty brutal.
yeah, so.
Okay. Both of us. What inspires you to be your best self? This is from Melissa. You go first.
Well, what inspires me to be the best self is, I think, my upbringing. Not disappointing my family, my immediate family or my friends. But I think it's just in me. Just try to be the best person that I could be,
Okay.
and that goes part with the way I grew up, my religion, and because whatever I do. I think I set the example for my family, my kids. So
God, you stole my answer.
if I do something bad, it kind of shows that my kids that it's okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to be the example, not just for my family, but also like people that I know.
Okay, so my answer, you stole some of the answer. It was what inspires me to be the best version of myself would possibly be my children. They're always watching me, and I want to make sure that I set a good example. Also, my dad told me before once, this is like right before he passed away, he said, you could do many things in life. You just don't have to be one thing. So you can be many things. I think what inspires me is that I can be many more things. I don't just have to be a teacher. I don't just have to be a mom. I don't just have to be his wife. I can be many things. If I wanted to climb Mount Fuji, I probably could.
Yeah.
And that's what inspires me, to be a champ. Oh, this is from our kid.
Oh.
3 things that have made your marriage what it is today. Isabel, why would you ask that?
3 things that have made our marriage how it is today.
Yeah.
I think that number 1 thing might be communication. And it's difficult, but I think communication sometimes
Communication.
has to be clear in what we expect from each other. Trust. We need to trust each other. And many different aspects in life.
Okay.
And I think overall, just us being on the same page.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think we discuss a lot of things, and if we are in agreement of doing things certain ways and be on the same page, we're not working against each other, we're working with each other.
Okay. My answer would be faith. Our faith and loyalty. That's a big thing. Communication. And probably, I would say, love.
Wow. Good answers.
Love. If I didn't love you, how would this marriage work? If I fell out of love with you, I would call it a wraps. That's what I think. Love and is a big thing. You have to be in love with this person. I mean, not all times you're gonna look at that person and be like, oh my gosh, I love him. No, and
not everyone can be like you. Huh?
Okay, no one can be like me. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna skim through this. Let's see. Okay. What is the most important thing you have learned in life so far? From Nancy. This is the both of us.
I think for me is that life is not fair. You can work hard for something, and it's not going to work out for you. A lot of times things happen to you that you ask why, but it's just something that life throws at you, and it's not always going to be fair, and you just need to overcome those obstacles and continue.
Okay, let me see. I think that I would say what have I learned about life so far is that things can be taken away like this. So you need to live with purpose. You need to walk with purpose. You need to have faith. You need to keep the good people in your life, and let the bad ones go. And it's not bad to do that. And you need to be loyal to yourself before you're loyal to anybody else. So that's what I think I've learned so far in life. I'm gonna live till I'm 90, like my grandma. So I plan to learn a lot more lessons in life, and I'm open to learning more things.
Okay.
All right. I think I'm gonna take a couple more. Let me look through. Oh, okay. Ed, this is for you. What is your leadership style in your career, and where do you see yourself in the department going? This is from a fellow employee.
Well, it all depends on the situation. If you guys know, I'm a police officer, so it all depends. I think on a general basis, I'm more like a democratic, because I try to develop my my officers. So I take a lot of input, and like that they have a buy-in. But there's situations where I have to be authoritative, where something needs to be done now and this way, and there's no deviation. So it all depends on the situation.
Okay. This question is for me. What supporting skills do you think are important for a leader to obtain? And this is from Melissa again. I think effective communication is key. Problem solving, empathy, and honesty. I love to have an honest team, an honest friend, a loyal friend. There's been situations when people were not honest, and that's what I find my biggest downfall is with someone on my team, is when you're not honest or when you're not loyal. And at that point, I'm really fast to cut that out of my life. As many of you know, just give me the scissors and I'll do the work. Snip. I think that's all we have time for. This was great. This was fun. And any closing words you want to say before we end? This was nerve-wracking, these questions.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could spend a lot more time answering questions of our family dynamics.
Yeah.
And the way we run things and other stuff. But
there were a lot of good questions in here, and we didn't get a chance to read all of them. About equality, and I know we have disagreements about equality.
Wow, that's like another podcast by itself.
And our girls
equality.
know this because he preaches these things. So stay tuned for the next episode. And if you have questions for Eddie and I, hit me up. Thank you.